Tears Kingdom good. Ganondorf is one of my favorite villains in fiction. Now, there's a few reasons for this. I love the demonology of the Zelda games. The Gerudo tribe is by far and away my favorite species in Zelda. I think Demise's curse is super interesting as well. But beyond all those other factors, although it's true that Ganon isn't the most powerful character in fiction, nowhere near, there are few characters that are as synonymous with the idea of power as Ganondorf. As the reincarnation of the god of evil, the chief of the Gerudo tribe, and the bearer of the Triforce of power, one of the first words you think of when you see this character is power, if not the very first word. It also helps that he's built like a truck. With the release of Tears of the Kingdom, Ganondorf's lists of feats have only grown. So today I'd like to go through all 14 of his appearances to try and assess just how formidable the Demon King really is. We have a lot of ground to cover today, because the amount of abilities I was able to identify for Ganondorf is 81. So in most cases, we won't be lingering on any one ability for very long, and we will be knocking out a lot of them in groups. Additionally, we will be discussing Tears of the Kingdom in this video, so although I'm going to try and limit my discussion of Tears of the Kingdom to just the necessary details, there will be minor spoilers for the game in this video. Finally, I want to be clear that although I've done a lot of research for this video, I'm not perfect, and I'm going into this video expecting to have missed details or made mistakes. So if you catch any of those, let me know. I want this video to have as much accuracy as possible. With that said, let's get into it. Let's start off with what I think Ganondorf is most known for. His strength. Ganondorf is a giant guy. In Ocarina of Time, he's said to be 7'6", and that is 7'6" on top of lean muscle. With his physique in mind, I would not be surprised if Ganondorf is pushing about 300 pounds or 136 kilograms. This man is a truck. He is a mountain. He looks like his muscle fibers are made out of condensed obsidian rock. And not just that, but Ganon, when he turns into his boar form, can be much, much larger, reaching colossal sizes. Ganon's largest form is Calamity Ganon, and in that state, he was so large that he was about the size of Hyrule Castle. While in his Gerudo and smaller boar forms, he was able to easily destroy floors, stone pillars, and was able to smash through the thick stone of the Dark World Pyramid. He did this while taking the form of a bat. And with the Triforce of Power, Ganondorf's strength grows immensely. We see a very blatant example of this when Ganondorf is resurrected by the Triforce of Power and afterwards is able to break through the chains that left him helpless otherwise. With the Secret Stone, Ganondorf is able to lift Hyrule into the air and is able to rapidly move the Blood Moon. And if we're talking about pure energy output, with the Triforce of Power, Ganondorf was able to completely transform an entire realm. Now, I don't know how big this realm is. It could be anywhere from like a town to an entire universe, but I think either way to completely retransform something requires a lot of energy. Ganondorf is also incredibly durable. He survives a flood, he survives being burnt alive by Valu, he lives long enough to utter his last words after being stabbed in the head by Link, he survives his own tower collapsing on him, and he is even able to completely regenerate after being completely decayed to the point of there being nothing left of him. Ganondorf is incredibly difficult to actually deal damage to. Some of the durability related abilities that he has includes after image creation, cyborgization, enhanced senses, immortality, incorporeality, intangibility, invisibility, and longevity. We specifically know about the longevity because he barely ages in between Ocarina of Time and Wind Waker, despite those two games existing hundreds of years apart from one another. Additionally, when he's in the form of Calamity Ganon, he also possesses abstract existence because Calamity Ganon's malice exists independently of his true form, which is hidden underneath Hyrule Castle. Ganondorf is incredibly acrobatic, being able to front flip and back flip all over the arena, and he's even able to land on his feet consistently, akin to a cat's riding reflex. He is capable of just straight flight, so he can fly and levitate and move around in the air, and he's also capable of dimensional travel. He can create gateways between the light and dark world, he can create portals to the space in between dimensions, and he can also banish targets directly to another dimension. This ability to dimensionally travel means that he has something called battlefield removal, and he also has access to teleportation. All of these physical properties of his are enhanced significantly by his possession of the Triforce of Power, and it does make him a physically intimidating opponent. However, Ganondorf did not seek the Triforce of Power with the goal of just being physically physically domineering. For Ganondorf, it's not just about his physical strength, he also seeks political and social power, with the ultimate goal of ruling and taking over Hyrule. Ganondorf has genius intellect, and he's able to use his genius intellect to manipulate and control the people around him so that he can further his own political and social gains, on top of being able to use brute force when he needs to. As the Gerudo chief, he ran his own country. He tricked and gained the trust of the king of Hyrule, despite having a negative reputation up until that point. He tricked Link into opening the Temple of Time. He tricked Zant and manipulated his insanity and desperation for his own gain. He has an incredibly high battle IQ, matching much of Link's swordsmanship, which means that he also possesses weapon mastery akin to Link's. And he anticipated the use of the Divine Beasts and the Guardians against him, instead corrupting them and using them in his own takeover of Hyrule. Now I want to talk a little bit about his magic usage, because up until this point in this video, of the 81 abilities I've found for Ganondorf, we've only talked about 19, and we still have 62 to go. So while I'm going through the abilities, I'm going to divide them up to try and make them as comprehensible as possible, and we're kind of going to go rapid fire with them. We're not going to linger too much on any one ability. To start, I want to talk about all the magic abilities Ganondorf has that fall under the category of bending. And I'm using bending sort of how bending is used in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Bending is taking any sort of one substance or kind of thing and being able to create that thing, manipulate that thing, and inflict that thing onto other people. And while I'm bringing up Avatar: The Last Airbender, if you guys want to see an episode on that, let me know. Let me know what character you want me to cover. It'll probably be Aang. But just like in Avatar: The Last Airbender, Ganondorf is capable of water manipulation, earth manipulation, fire manipulation, and air manipulation. So he's basically the Avatar. On top of that, he can also do a lot of the subcategories from Avatar: The Last Airbender. So he's capable of ice manipulation, metal manipulation, explosion manipulation, lightning manipulation, and just light manipulation. Then there's all the evil related manipulations that he's capable of. You would imagine that an evil warlock would be able to manipulate these things. We have curse manipulation. He's able to both apply curses to people and areas. We have darkness manipulation. We have death manipulation, as he slowly killed the Great Deku Tree. We have disease manipulation because he makes a random kid sick. We have madness manipulation, as he caused King Dodongo to go berserk. We have poison manipulation and unholy manipulation. And then finally, for all the bending, we have any sort of additional environmental bending that I could find for him. We have biological manipulation, as he created the holes inside Jabu Jabu's belly, and he also made a fairy fat, which I think is really funny. It's really petty of him to just make her fatter and nothing else. We have crystal manipulation, mind manipulation, being able to control all the Hylian soldiers in Hyrule Castle. Pocket reality manipulation, as he was able to create small pocket dimensions that housed a lot of Link's previous opponents. We have seal manipulation, soul manipulation, as he was able to seal the champion's souls in the Divine Beasts. Spatial manipulation, being able to create mazes that loop onto themselves in ways they shouldn't, and was able to flip the space around Link, making his attacks face away from Ganon. And then finally, we have technology manipulation, time manipulation, and weather manipulation. The next subcategory for his magic is called creation, and it's exactly what you would think. It's the different things that Ganondorf is able to create. We have avatar creation, barrier creation, illusion creation, life creation, portal creation, and weapon creation. I was able to find 3 resistances for Ganondorf. He has a resistance to existence erasure, because he doesn't get erased instantly by the ancient arrows, where pretty much all other enemies do. We have sealing resistance, as he was able to resist Zelda's seal, and we have time stop resistance, as he was unaffected by the stasis rune. Now we have all the powers that I thought I could categorize into being mind related. We have astral projection, which means that he can project his consciousness outside of his body. We have clairvoyance, which means that he can know what's happening in an area that he isn't present in. We have hive mind, because the 4 Blight Ganons are said to be extensions of himself and his consciousness. We have possession, sleep inducement, telekinesis, and telepathy. We have 20 more powers left, so I'm just gonna rapidly go through everything else we have for Ganondorf. We have absorption, attack reflection, corruption, energy projection, which can take the form of singular bolts, multi-shot bolts, and homing bolts, necromancy, non-physical interaction, being able to kill a non-physical entity, the Sage of Water, paralysis inducement, power bestowal, as he was able to grant his powers to Zant, power nullification, because once he granted his powers to Zant, Zant was able to nullify Midna's powers with Ganondorf's powers. We have reality warping, resurrection, shape-shifting, being able to shapeshift into a shadow and a bat, shockwave generation, statistics amplification, summoning, surface scaling, transformation, and transmutation. His Zant turned Midna into an imp and Link into a wolf. Now we have his last two powers, power absorption and empowerment. And I save these for the end because this goes into a greater discussion about what powers I'm not going to give to Ganondorf. Specifically, he uses power absorption and empowerment in order to absorb the hatred of the Twilight, giving him his Twilight powers. I think you can certainly argue that Ganondorf should take credit for these powers. I think it's up to personal choice whether he deserves to have credit for them. But to me, they seem a little too conditional to Twilight Princess specifically for them to be included in an overview of Ganondorf's powers, if that makes sense. But I still want to cover them just in case you guys at home disagree with that take and want to know what powers he would have. With Twilight powers, he gets access to 3 additional abilities, which includes light absorption, matter manipulation, and regeneration negation. The regeneration negation is specifically with the Sword of Sages. I also have another 5 abilities that I think definitely do not apply to Ganondorf, because this would only theoretically apply to him when he has the full Triforce. There are times where Ganondorf does have the full Triforce, but I think that's way too conditional and is not representative of Ganondorf as a character, so I am not going to even consider giving these powers to him, but I'll still cover them. With the complete Triforce, Ganondorf has energy manipulation, healing, reality warping, cloth manipulation, and creation. And creation might sound like it's the same thing as the other creations that I mentioned before, but when I say creation, I mean Ganondorf with the full Triforce is able to create literally anything he wants, including a whole other Triforce that if he wanted to, he could gift to a parallel dimension. So clearly the Triforce is very powerful. Now I want to talk about Ganondorf's weaknesses and his fighting style, which are actually very related topics. The reason they're very related topics is because Ganondorf's biggest weakness by far is pride.
That pride will be your downfall, Ganondorf.
Pride dictates a lot of Ganondorf's actions. When Ganondorf is going up against an opponent, it's not enough for him to just win the fight. He wants everybody to know that he is better than his opponent. He wants to feel superior in his victory. And because of this, this means that Ganondorf doesn't use all of his abilities to their fullest extent, instead giving his opponent the opportunity to win. An example of this is his battlefield removal. In nearly every interaction with Link, Ganondorf could very easily just push Link through a portal and send him to the other side of Hyrule. But the problem with doing that is, well, what's the fun in that, right? There's no thrill in just removing somebody from a fight. Ganondorf is the kind of guy to pull his punches so that he feels even more superior when he wins. He didn't need to use all 81 of these abilities to beat you. He only needs to use 3 or 4. Compared to other weaknesses of his pride is always his biggest obstacle without fail. This means that when we're actually talking about Ganondorf in a fighting context, we can't actually just make assumptions like he's going to push this character through a portal and win instantly, because he's probably not going to. That's not in character for Ganondorf. Ganondorf has other weaknesses too, like there's limitations to his invisibility and intangibility, for example, but his other big weakness is a weakness to holy weapons. Most of the time, Ganondorf can just regenerate any damage that's done to him. But weapons like the Bow of Light, the Sword of Sages, and the Master Sword do very tangible damage to Ganondorf. Holy weapons bypass Ganondorf's regeneration, so if you want to do permanent damage to Ganondorf, you have to use holy weapons. Otherwise, there's really no winning a fight against Ganondorf. So finally, we actually get to compare Ganondorf to the previous characters I've covered in this series. First 3 videos in the series felt like they ended without a proper conclusion, so I've decided this would be a pretty good way to end off every episode. I have the Cordyceps, I have Shigaraki, I have Death, and I have myself, which I placed there just to sort of represent the average human being. So I don't think anyone's going to argue that Ganondorf isn't stronger than the average human. Also, the Cordyceps, he just sweeps. He sweeps the Cordyceps instantly. Now Shigaraki is interesting because Shigaraki is faster, stronger, and more durable than Ganondorf. However, Shigaraki doesn't have any real means of killing Ganondorf in this fight, and that is because of Ganondorf's regeneration. Shigaraki does not have the resources to be able to do damage to Ganondorf through holy means. And so what is normally Shigaraki's big one-up, which is his decay quirk, ultimately doesn't matter because Ganondorf can regenerate from nothing. And so Ganondorf definitely wins this fight. I don't have any doubt that Ganondorf is going to get decayed, but what I doubt is that Ganondorf will not adapt once he realizes his normal fighting strategy isn't working. The reason Shigaraki Shigaraki loses in this fight, I think, is because Shigaraki is giving Ganondorf too much time to adapt to the environment and eventually get over his pride so that he will win after being pushed to the extremes. And then Death is also an interesting fight for Ganondorf because Ganondorf is definitely stronger than Death, but I don't think Ganondorf and Death can reasonably kill each other. Death is a primordial being. He is the concept Death. He's not like the Grim Reaper. He's quite literally the concept of death. He is the thing that's happening to millions of little bacteria on your body right now. Death is omnipresent. He is everywhere. He is a constant in the universe. And so I don't think Ganondorf has the means to kill an entity like that. However, we have never seen Death display any sort of strength feat that would make me think that he can kill Ganondorf either. So I realistically think this fight ends off in a stalemate. However, I am going to give the edge to Ganondorf because with that said, I think Ganondorf on the whole has more impressive feats than Death does. And so I think he deserves to have the edge. Now, the distance between characters is going to change between videos. I can very easily just make up my mind and change my opinion in between videos. Nothing about this ranking is set in stone. You guys can argue about it in the comments. But for right now, this is how I'm feeling on these 4 characters, or I guess technically 5 characters, because I'm including myself as a gauge. And although I think Ganondorf is far from the most powerful character in fiction, there's definitely more powerful characters than Ganondorf. I think he's topping the list so far. However, that could definitely change in just a few episodes.